America in 2026 is still a country of contrasts. In cities like New York, Los Angeles, or Miami, modernity seems to erase any trace of isolation. Highways, airports, and trains connect almost everything, but not everywhere. Far from the skyscrapers and highways, there are towns that seem to live in another time. Communities cut off from the rest of the country by mountains, deserts, rivers, or borders. Places where getting there is an odyssey, where life is sustained by community, and where modernity barely knocks at the door. For those seeking to understand the other face of the United States, this is not just about geography. It is about discovering how isolation shapes cultures, economies, and ways of life. I didn't believe it either. Until I saw it with my own eyes. Today, I'm going to reveal the 13 most isolated towns in the United States, places where time moves differently and where life is measured in resilience and belonging. And let me tell you, each one is more surprising than the last. 13. Supai, Arizona, the town of mail by mule. Supai, in the heart of the Grand Canyon, is the only place in the country where mail is still delivered by mule. There are no roads leading here, only an 8-mile trail, an occasional helicopter, or the passage of pack animals. In its best years, Supai was a cultural exchange center for the Havasupai tribe. Today, its isolation has allowed language, traditions, and customs to be preserved. The atmosphere is unique. Turquoise waterfalls like Havasu Falls, endless canyons, and a silence that feels eternal. Walking here is like feeling the modern world disappear. The sound of water crashing against rocks mixes with the echo of footsteps on dusty trail. Life is measured by the relationship with nature. The economy depends on tourism and indigenous tradition. With $1,000 a month here, you barely cover basic needs, but life is measured in community and nature. Visitors pay permits to access the waterfalls, and that income sustains much of the local economy. Food arrives by mule, which makes every product more expensive. A bottle of water can cost twice as much as in any nearby city. The lifestyle is simple. No cars, no supermarkets, no modern hospitals. With $1,000, you can pay for basic lodging, food brought in by mule, and participate in community life. Luxury here is not material, but spiritual. Living surrounded by landscapes that seem taken from another world. The risks are clear: extreme isolation and limited access to medical services. An emergency can mean hours of waiting for a helicopter. Summer heat and sudden storms can complicate daily life. In 2026, Supai remains a reminder that the boundary between modernity and tradition still exists. Here, isolation is not a disadvantage, but a way to preserve a culture that refuses to disappear. 12. Utqiagvik, Alaska, the end of the Arctic world. Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow, is the northernmost city in the United States, located above the Arctic Circle. There are no roads connecting it to the rest of Alaska. The only way to get there is by plane. That condition makes Utqiagvik a place where life is measured in resilience and adaptation. In its best years, Utqiagvik was a fur trading hub and a meeting point for Arctic explorers. Today, the Inupiat community keeps alive its traditions of whale and seal hunting, practices that are not only cultural, but vital for survival. The atmosphere is harsh and fascinating. For 65 days in winter, the sun does not appear, and the city is plunged into an endless polar night. the cold can drop to unimaginable temperatures, and the Arctic wind turns every outing into a test of endurance. Yet in summer, the sun never sets, and the city lives under constant light that transforms the landscape into a surreal stage. The economy is expensive and dependent on air transport. A gallon of milk can cost 3 times more than in any southern city, and basic products arrive on cargo planes. With $1,000 a month here, you barely cover food and basic services. But the community compensates with ancestral practices, hunting, fishing, and sharing among neighbours. The lifestyle is simple and communal. With that budget, you can pay for a small home, cover part of your food, and participate in local cultural life. Luxury here is not material, but the experience of living at the end of the world, surrounded by landscapes few have ever seen. The risks are extreme: polar climate, total dependence on air transport, and lack of quick access to specialized medical services. A storm can isolate the city for days, and any emergency becomes a logistical challenge. In 2026, Utqiagvik remains a bastion of cultural resistance in the Arctic. Here, isolation is not a disadvantage, but a way to preserve an identity that refuses to disappear. 11. Chicken, Alaska, the town that couldn't spell its name. Chicken was born during the gold rush of the 19th century. The miners who founded the town wanted to call it ptarmigan, in honor of the local bird, but no one knew how to spell it. To avoid embarrassment, they chose a simpler name, Chicken. Since then, the town has lived between irony and resilience. In its best years, Chicken was a vibrant mining camp, full of gold seekers and merchants who arrived with hopes of getting rich. Today, fewer than 50 inhabitants remain in this remote corner of Alaska, surrounded by rusty relics and memories of a glorious past. The atmosphere is that of a town frozen in time. Wooden houses look like they belong to another era, and eccentric festivals keep local identity alive. Every summer, residents organize celebrations where humor and history mix, attracting curious tourists who want to experience life in a place with such a peculiar name. The economy is sustained by curious tourism and gold relics. Visitors arrive drawn by history and the chance to buy unique souvenirs. With $1,000 a month here, you live in a rustic way. A small cabin, basic food, and participation in community life. Luxury is not material, but the tranquility of living in a place where time seems to have stopped. The lifestyle is simple and marked by isolation. There are no large supermarkets or modern hospitals. Residents depend on themselves and on neighbourly solidarity. With that budget, you can cover the essentials and enjoy a life measured in experiences, not possessions. The risks are clear: extreme winters, total isolation, and limited access to medical services. A snowstorm can leave the town cut off for weeks, and any emergency requires monumental effort. In 2026, Chicken remains a symbol of humour and resilience in Alaska. Here, isolation is not a sentence, but a way of life that preserves the essence of a town born from a spelling mistake and turned into legend. Before moving on to town number 10, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like on this video. Only if you want to stay well informed, make smart choices, and avoid the bad ones in the future. 10. Kaskaskia, Illinois, the capital trapped by the river. Kaskaskia was once the political heart of Illinois. In 1818, when the state joined the Union, This small town was chosen as its first capital. The bells of its churches rang proudly, and the streets filled with merchants arriving by the Mississippi River. It was a vibrant place with colonial houses and an air of prosperity. But nature had other plans. The Mississippi, capricious and powerful, changed its course over time. Floods and erosion devoured the land until Kaskaskia was left isolated, trapped on an island accessible only from Missouri. What was once the centre of a state is today a forgotten corner. The current atmosphere is that of a ghost town. Only 14 inhabitants remain, guarding old churches and monuments that recall a glorious past. Walking its streets is like hearing the echo of what once was, the voices of legislators, bustling markets, boats arriving loaded with goods. Today, silence dominates. The economy practically does not exist. There are no supermarkets or industries. With $1,000 a month here, you can survive, but money cannot buy what is missing: community, services, opportunities. Residents depend on basic agriculture and occasional visits from curious tourists who want to see the lost capital. The lifestyle is austere. With that budget, you can maintain a small house, cover basic food, and live surrounded by history. Luxury here is intangible, the peace of a place where time has stopped. The risks are clear: depopulation, constant erosion, and geographic isolation. A rise in the river can cut off access completely. In 2026, Kaskaskia is a reminder of how nature can erase history. A town that was once a capital now struggles not to disappear entirely. 9. St. Thomas, Nevada. The town underwater. St. Thomas was founded in 1865 by Mormon pioneers seeking fertile land in the Nevada desert. For decades, it was an agricultural town, with fields of corn and wheat nourished by the Colorado River. Families built schools, churches, and businesses. It was an oasis in the desert. But in the 1930s, the government decided to build the Hoover Dam. Lake Mead flooded the valley, and St. Thomas was doomed. Residents had to abandon their homes, watching as the water slowly advanced and covered everything they had built. In 1938, the last resident left his home by boat as the water claimed it. The current atmosphere is ghostly. In times of drought, the ruins emerge: foundations of houses, brick walls, remnants of schools. Walking among them is like touring an open-air museum, where every stone tells a story of a town swallowed by water. The economy disappeared with the flood. Today, St. Thomas exists only through archaeological tourism. With $1,000 a month here, there is no daily life. But there is the possibility of exploring a unique place where history blends with nature. The lifestyle is non-existent. No one lives here permanently. Visitors come to see the ruins, take photographs, and reflect on the fragility of communities in the face of human projects. The risks are evident. The water can cover the ruins completely at any time. The memory of the town depends on the droughts that leave it exposed. In 2026, St. Thomas remains a ghost town underwater, a reminder that progress can erase entire communities and that memory is preserved in the stones that emerge from the lake. 8. Vanport, Oregon. The city erased in a day. Vanport was built in 1942 as a temporary city to house shipyard workers in Portland during World War II. In just months, thousands of prefabricated homes, schools, theatres and markets were erected. Families from all over the country arrived, drawn by the promise of work and prosperity. At its peak, Vanport was the second largest city in Oregon, with more than 40,000 inhabitants. The atmosphere of those years was vibrant, children playing on newly drawn streets, factories roaring day and night, and a diverse community that included African Americans, immigrants, and working-class white families. Vanport was, in many ways, a social experiment, a place where people of different backgrounds lived together, sharing dreams and struggles. But on May 30th, 1948, everything changed. A flood of the Columbia River broke the levees, and within hours the city was underwater. Thousands of families lost their homes, and Vanport disappeared forever. The disaster not only erased a city, but transformed Portland's history, forcing the integration of communities that had previously lived apart. The current atmosphere is one of painful memory. Today, the area where Vanport once stood is an open field, with commemorative plaques recalling what happened. Walking there is to feel the weight of memory, imagining the houses, schools, markets, and then seeing only grass and silence. The economy vanished with the flood. There is no daily life in Vanport, only historical memory. With $1,000 a month here you cannot live, but you can research, explore, and reflect on what it means to lose an entire city in a single day. The lifestyle at the time was that of a vibrant working-class community. Today, luxury is intangible. Learning from history, understanding how a natural disaster can change the destiny of thousands of people. The risks were evident. Vulnerability to natural disasters. The lack of adequate infrastructure condemned Vanport. In 2026, Vanport lives only in historical memory. It is a reminder that cities can disappear, but the lessons they leave behind remain. 7. New Madrid, Missouri, the town that shook. New Madrid was founded at the end of the 18th century in fertile land along the Mississippi River. For years it prospered as an agricultural and commercial center. Boats arrived loaded with goods, and families cultivated rich fields of corn and cotton. But between 1811 and 1812, the earth shook with unimaginable force. A series of devastating earthquakes, the most powerful ever recorded in U.S. history, destroyed much of the town. The Mississippi changed its course and the region was forever marked. The atmosphere of those days was apocalyptic. Cracks in the earth, houses collapsing, trees torn from their roots. Accounts say the river flowed backward for several minutes, and the rumble was heard as far away as the East Coast. Today, New Madrid still exists, but it lives under the shadow of that disaster. The community is small, resilient, and aware that the ground beneath their feet can tremble again. Walking its streets is to feel the memory of a town that survived the impossible. The current economy is based on agriculture and small businesses. With $1,000 a month here, you can live with some comfort, a simple house, local food, and a quiet life. Luxury lies in the peace of a town that learned to coexist with seismic threat. The lifestyle is communal. Neighbors know each other, share stories, and keep alive the memory of the earthquake. With that budget, you can enjoy a simple life, surrounded by nature and a community that values resilience. The risks are clear. The area remains seismically active. Living here means accepting that the earth can shake again. In 2026, New Madrid remains a resilient town under seismic threat. A reminder that nature can change everything in an instant, but also that communities can survive and adapt. 6. Point Roberts, Washington. The geographic mistake. Point Roberts is a curious case of political geography. Located just south of Vancouver, Canada, this small town belongs to the United States, but is completely separated from the rest of the country. To get there from any other American city, you must cross the Canadian border, drive a few miles, and then re-enter US territory. In its best years, Point Roberts was a vacation destination for families from Seattle and Vancouver. Its quiet beaches, forests, and relaxed atmosphere made it a summer refuge. Many built vacation homes, and the town thrived thanks to seasonal tourism. The current atmosphere is that of a border town, where life is measured in border crossings. Residents must pass through Canada to go to the doctor, shop, or visit relatives in other US cities. Walking its streets meant feeling the blend of cultures. American flags waving alongside shops that accept Canadian dollars, conversations in English with a Pacific accent, and a sense of community that knows it lives in a unique corner. The economy depends on tourism and basic services. With $1,000 a month here, you can live with some comfort. A small house, local food, and the tranquility of a coastal town. Luxury lies in the peace of the beaches and the sensation of living in a place that feels like a geographic secret. The lifestyle is communal and marked by the border. Neighbours know each other, share stories, and accept that every trip means showing a passport. With that budget, you can enjoy a simple life, surrounded by nature and a community that values the uniqueness of its situation. The risks are clear: total dependence on Canada for access to services, isolation if the border closes, and economic limitations. A diplomatic crisis could leave the town completely cut off. In 2026, Point Roberts remains a town trapped between imaginary lines. A reminder that borders do not always follow the logic of everyday life. 5. Haida, Alaska, more Canadian than American. Haida is a tiny town in the far southeast of Alaska, so isolated that the only road connecting it to the world leads directly into Canada. To get there from any other part of the United States, you must pass through Canadian territory. In its best years, Haida was a mining town. The gold seekers arrived, hoping to find riches in the nearby mountains. Over time, mining disappeared, and the town was reduced to just a handful of residents. The current atmosphere is that of a border town, more Canadian than American. Residents use Canadian dollars, shop in stores in nearby Stewart in Canada, and live as if they were part of another country. Walking through Haida means seeing wooden houses, quiet streets, and a landscape dominated by glaciers and bears. The economy depends on nature tourism. Visitors come to see bears fishing for salmon in the river, to explore glaciers, and to experience the curiosity of being in an American town that feels Canadian. With $1,000 a month here, you can live with some comfort, a small cabin, basic food, and the tranquility of a place where life is measured in landscapes. The lifestyle is simple and marked by isolation. With that budget, you can cover the essentials and enjoy a life measured on natural experiences. Luxury here is not material, but the possibility of living surrounded by glaciers, mountains, and wildlife. The risks are clear: isolation, dependence on Canada for basic services, and lack of economic opportunities. A storm can cut off road access, and any emergency requires crossing the border. In 2026, Haida remains a town more Canadian than American. A reminder that borders are lines on a map, but everyday life is measured in community and nature. 4. Angle Inlet, Minnesota, the forgotten exclave. Angle Inlet is a fascinating case of political geography. Located in the far north of Minnesota, it is the only U.S. town north of the 49th parallel. To get there from the rest of the country, you must cross Canada and then re-enter U.S. territory. That condition makes it an isolated exclave, a forgotten corner that seems to exist in another dimension. In its best years, Angle Inlet was a center of fishing and tourism. The nearby lakes attracted visitors seeking peace and contact with nature. Families built cabins, and the town prospered thanks to sport fishing and seasonal tourism. The current atmosphere is that of a remote place, surrounded by endless lakes and dense forests. Walking its streets means feeling the silence of nature, hearing birdsong and the murmur of water. The community is small and life is measured in seasons. Summer brings tourists, winter brings isolation. The economy depends on tourism and fishing. With $1,000 a month here, you can live with some comfort. A simple cabin, basic food, and the tranquility of a place where time seems to stand still. Luxury lies in the peace of the lakes and the sensation of living in a unique corner of the country. The lifestyle is simple and marked by isolation. With that budget, you can cover the essentials and enjoy a life measured in natural experiences. Luxury here is not material, but the possibility of living surrounded by lakes, forests, and wildlife. The risks are clear: dependence on Canada for access to services, isolation if the border closes, and economic limitation. A storm can cut off road access, and any emergency requires crossing the border. In 2026, Angle Inlet remains a remote and forgotten corner, a reminder that borders are lines on a map, but everyday life is measured in community and nature. Before revealing the last 3 most isolated towns in the United States, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like on this video. Only if you want to avoid costly decisions in the future. And make sure you're always well informed. 3. Kalaupapa, Hawaii. Isolation imposed. Kalaupapa, on the island of Molokai, is a place marked by history. In the 19th century, the Hawaiian government established a colony here for people with leprosy. For decades, hundreds of patients were sent to this isolated corner, surrounded by cliffs that prevented escape. The community lived in harsh conditions, separated from the rest of the world. In its best years, Kalaupapa was a place of resistance and hope. Residents, despite illness and isolation, built churches, schools, and homes. The figure of Father Damien, a Belgian priest who dedicated his life to caring for the sick, became a symbol of compassion and sacrifice. The current atmosphere is that of a place of memory. The imposing cliffs surround the town, and the sea crashes powerfully against the coast. Walking through Kalaupapa means feeling the weight of history. The old houses, the churches, the cemeteries that remember those who lived and died here. The economy is limited and depends on historical tourism. With $1,000 a month here, you can live in a basic way: a small home, simple food, and participation in community life. Luxury lies in the peace of the place and the opportunity to reflect on history. The lifestyle is simple and marked by isolation. With that budget, you can cover the essentials and enjoy a life measured in spiritual experiences. Luxury here is not material, but the possibility of living in a place where history and nature blend. The risks are clear: geographic isolation, limited access to medical services, and dependence on tourism. A storm can cut off access by sea, and any emergency requires monumental effort. In 2026, Kalaupapa remains a town marked by the past, a reminder that isolation can be imposed, but it can also become a symbol of resistance and hope. To Monowi, Nebraska, the town of one person. Monowi is a unique case in the United States. Located on the plains of Nebraska, this town is famous for having only one resident, Elsie Eiler. She is the mayor, the librarian, the tavern owner, and the sole neighbour. Monowi is not just a town, it is the story of a woman who decided to keep alive the memory of her community. In its best years, Monowi was a small agricultural centre. Families grew corn and wheat, and life was measured in harvests and community gatherings. Over time, rural depopulation emptied the town. Young people left in search of opportunities, and the houses were abandoned. The current atmosphere is that of a ghost town, where silence dominates. The streets are empty, the houses are in ruins, and only Elsie's Tavern keeps a spark of life. Walking through Monowi is to feel solitude, but also the strength of a woman who refuses to let her town die. The economy depends on the tavern and the library that Elsie maintains. With $1,000 a month here, you can live in a basic way: a small house, simple food, and the company of Elsie. The true luxury lies in the experience of talking with her, listening to her stories, and understanding what it means to be the last resident of a town. The lifestyle is simple and marked by solitude. With that budget, you can cover the essentials and enjoy a life measured in memories. Luxury here is not material, but the possibility of living in a place where history is preserved in the memory of a single person. The risks are clear: total depopulation, lack of services, and extreme isolation. When Elsie is gone, Monowi will disappear completely. In 2026, Monowi remains the extreme example of demographic isolation, a reminder that towns do not die all at once, but little by little, until only one person remains to tell their story. 1. Supai's sister villages in the Grand Canyon, guardians of tradition. Beyond Supai, there are other villages in the Grand Canyon that live in isolation, accessible only on foot or by mule. These indigenous communities have resisted for centuries, keeping their traditions alive in an environment that challenges modernity. In their best years, these villages were centres of culture and spirituality. Families cultivated small plots, hunted and fished, and life was measured in rituals and celebrations. Isolation was not a disadvantage, but a way to preserve identity. The current atmosphere is that of a sacred place. The imposing canyons surround the communities, and silence mixes with the sound of wind and water. Walking through these villages is to feel the power of nature and the spirituality of those who live there. The economy depends on controlled tourism and indigenous tradition. With $1,000 a month here, you can live in a basic way: a small home, simple food, and participation in community life. Luxury lies in the peace of the place and the opportunity to learn from a culture that refuses to disappear. The lifestyle is simple and marked by isolation. With that budget, you can cover the essentials and enjoy a life measured in spiritual experiences. Luxury here is not material, but the possibility of living in a place where history and nature blend. The risks are clear: extreme isolation, limited access to medical services, and dependence on tourism. A storm can cut off access for days, and any emergency requires monumental effort. In 2026, these villages remain guardians of culture and resilience. A reminder that isolation can be a way to preserve identity, and that modernity is not always necessary to live fully. So, after this journey through the 13 most isolated towns in the United States, the big question arises. Which of these places impressed you the most at first sight? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you visited any of them? Live near one, or do you know someone who has? Any experience or information you share in the comments could be invaluable for those seeking to better understand what life is like in these communities where isolation turns into resilience, tradition, and memory. And speaking of helping, it might also be useful to watch the video on screen. Because, as you know, staying informed is key. And for that, there's nothing better than subscribing to the channel and liking this video.